So to do the basic pant for the front, for the sake of explanation, I've wrapped all the lines. I'm going to start all over again. So when you start, you mark your 2 inches border line from the side of the fabric. Mark another 2 inches on the top. On the top like this, 2 inches, and draw your straight line. So this is going to serve as the waistline. Then from the waistline, mark the waist to hip, which is 9 inches. Waist to hip, 9 inches. Then draw a straight line. Then you mark your crotch line, which is 13 inches from the waist to the crotch, and 13 inches you draw your straight line. So you are going to get the hip here, then the crotch line here. You can go ahead and from here you just mark your trouser length plus your allowance. So your trouser length plus allowance, 39 plus 3 inches, which is 42. Then from the waist you can just straight away draw your trouser length. So this is our trouser length. So after drawing it, if you want us to mark the knee line, you can just go ahead, just measure the distance between the crotch line and the trouser length, divide into 2 to get your knee line. So this is the knee line. So for the front, we are still going to use our hip measurement to mark. So the hip divided by 4, because we are just going to concentrate on a quarter part of the trouser. So the hip divided by 4 you mark, which is your 11. Mark your 11 inches. 11 inches. Then mark the same hip measurement on the hip line. You mark the same hip measurement on the crotch line. Then just draw a straight line through. So we are going to do it on the fabric. You mark your hip measurement 11 inches. Mark 11 inches on the hip line, then on the crotch line. So you mark your hip on all the lines, the waist, the hip line, and the crotch line. So the hip divided by 4 you mark. Then you just draw a straight line through the 3. Good. So to determine our crotch curve, we are going to remember from the back we divided the hip measurement divided by 4 into 2. So from here to here we divided into 2 because the back curves long. For the front, because there's no curve on the front and it's straight, we are rather going to divide it by 4. So that's the difference. For the back you divide by 2 and mark the crotch curve. For the front you divide by 4. So when you take the 11, then you divide the 11 into 2. We got 5.5. Then the 5.5 again divided by 2, which will give you divided by 4. So this is like just dividing 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are just going to mark a quarter on the crotch curve like this. So this is the crotch curve. Since the crotch is a curve through your down, it's not a square. So we are going to pivot for the front. You can pivot just 1.5 inches from the corner here. Just pivot 1.5. Then from here, you can just connect your curve through the crotch curve and you get your front crotch curve. So we are going to do the same thing for the fabric. So the 11, we are going to divide the 11 into 4. The first one, or you can even fold it again and you get divided by 4. You just open and take the first quarter, which is almost 2.7. So you just mark. Then for the crotch curve, since it's a curve, you are going to pivot 1.5 inch for the front. Then just from here, curve through the 1.5 mark. Then just draw to meet our crotch curve. Good. So we'll get our crotch curve for the front. Then after, you measure the distance between the crotch and the where the crotch line begins. So you measure and divide by 2. So after dividing by 2, you mark. Then you mark the same distance from here divided by 2 on the knee line. Then on the trouser length line too. Then just connect them with a straight line. So we are going to do that on the fabric. We're going to measure from the crotch curve line. Here I had 14, so divided by 2, I'm going to get 7. So I'm going to mark 7 from the crotch line. We'll mark 7 again on the knee line. Then on the trouser length line. Then we are going to connect it with a straight line. Good. So mind you, since this is the front we mark what we use for the back -1. So the back on the knee we mark 5 inches. For the front we are going to mark 4 inches. So let's say from the point here on the knee, 4 inches here, we go mark 4 inches. Then as I told you before, if you want a straight, you can measure the same 4 inches for the curve. But if you want a little tapered to the end, then you can subtract 1 from the measurement you use here. So if you subtract 1 from the 4 inches, you are going to get 3 inches. Then after marking, we are just going to connect with a straight line. Then from here to here, then we'll get from the curve here, we are going to connect to the knee. Then we'll get our front trouser pattern. So if you want to cut this is the real measurement. We don't cut on it exactly. We are going to leave our allowance. For the front, if it's just for elastic, you are going to just put the elastic. You can just go ahead and mark your 1 inch allowance. Then draw the second. Give 1 inch, 1 inch. Then just draw your cutting line. 1 inch from here, then 1 inch here. So it's going to pass through here. So this will be our cutting line if you are going to just do an elastic pant. Then for the 2 inches allowance, we are going to follow the 2 inches. Then just draw our allowance curve. So this will be our cutting line for the front. But if you are going to do the pants with a zip in front, we don't cut the front like this. You can just from the waist to hip, you are just going to give about 2 inches allowance here. Then curve to the 1 inch allowance, just to give us an allowance to insert our zip. Oh, it's not too straight. So this one looks a bit curvy from here. Then this, so this will be the flap in which the zip will lie. So if you are going to do a pant with a zip, this is the flap we will leave for the front. Only for the front, not the back. So this will be the cutting line for the front. This is good. So in trousers, we are going to do the same thing on the fabric. So after dividing into 2 and getting the in between the line, for the front, for the back we mark 5 inches. So on the knee line for the front is -1. So we are going to mark 4 inches. Then since we want the end a little bit slimmer or penciled, we are going to subtract 1 inch from the front and mark 3 inches. 3 inches. We are going to use the ruler to join the knee to the crotch curve. Then from the knee to the hem of the trouser. So we are going to connect from the side here to the knee. Then also connect from the knee to the hem. So we will get our front pattern trouser. But since this is the measurement pattern, we can't cut on this line. We have to give an allowance to cut. So we are going to, as I indicated earlier, if you are doing a pant with just the elastic, we are going to put on it. There's no need leaving the flap in the front. We can just go ahead and just mark our 1 inch, and just curve to the. But if it's a pant with a zip, then we need the flap in the front. So we are going to mark our 2 inches flap zip right from the waist to only the hip. We are going to curve. So from here, if the allowance was 1 inch, we're going to curve it from the 1 inch allowance. So you leave 1 inch to the side. So we're going to curve from the 1 inch right through and use the ruler to continue. Then you get our flap. This is not too nice. You can just curve it a little to make it look. Then from here, we can curve our allowance, the cutting line to here. Then use a ruler to continue. Connect. So this is going to be our cutting line. Then on the side, we are going to leave this allowance, which is 2 inches. Then mark the 2 inches on the side. If you are okay with your measurements, you can reduce the 2 inches and just make it 1 inch if you like. But if you are a beginner, mark 2 inches. So when you try the pants on and it's too tight, you can get allowance to open. Good. So this is our front pattern trouser. So when we are cutting, we will just cut on the allowance left. So I'm going to cut the front pattern. So I'm going to cut the side. So this becomes the front pattern trouser. So if you are going to use it for the flap, this is going to be the flap side where the zip is going to lie. Then this will be the crotch end. The front pattern is always, if you compare the legs, the back is bigger than the front. So after cutting the pattern out, you realize that this is the front and the back is bigger than the front side when you put it on the sides. So this one, because it has a flap at the end, that's why it looks. If we had cut the 1 inch, so this explains how the back, your back, because you have a bigger side at the back, the back is bigger, always bigger than the front of the trousers. It's bigger. That's why when you get on the knee and it's 5, you always have to take 1 inch from the front. If you use 6 inches, you are going to use 5 inches for the front. So that, and this is going to serve as a pattern. So you are now going to put this on your piece of fabric and cut 2 for the front. This time you are not going to do it on fold because the pair of the trousers, you don't cut it on fold. You just cut a piece, you use it as a pattern for the front. You lay your fabric down, then you put it on it as a pattern and cut 2 pieces. The same way with the back. When you use the pattern, so it's always advisable to cut the pattern on a different cloth or a much cheaper cloth so that you can get the pattern and put on your main fabric and cut 2 for the back too. So you are going to get 4 pieces, 2 of each side, the 2 of the front and 2 of the back. In our next episode, we are going to show you how to stitch and insert the zip, do the darts and everything on it. This is just for the basic pants with a pencil shape. There are most trousers that has different designs. Basically, if you want a different design, let's say just a tapered or a broadened base, you can start from the hip here and just open to the hem, just open. So you have a bigger shaped leg. This one will not be a penciled pant, so you can cut on the opening side of to get your bigger shape. If this is too big for you, you can just cut on the straight line from the hip to the hem and just on straight like this, so you can get a more straight pant but with a more bigger allowance. So it's just the shape, how you want it, how you want to shape it, whether you are going to have a more basic flare, a more open bowler, that's the word. You can start from here, open. If you want a straight with enough allowance, you can just stand here, just go straight and cut it straight, and you get a straight tapered pants. If you want a flare from your knee, you can just use the length from the knee to the hem as the length of the hem. Then you cut your flare, then come and fix it from the knee, and you get a more flare pant, a pencil at the top, then with the flare from the knee. Wherever you want to fix the flare, you can, if it's below the knee too, you can measure the length, just cut the flare and just come and add it. So how you want to tape your trousers depends on you. If you want it as a pencil that you use the measurement, fine. You can just draw. You can just go straight and have a more volume for the legs, or you can just even open it wider for a bowler pants. So with the freehand cutting, you can just draw how you want your trouser, the pants to be, then you cut. So you can cut from here then to join the hip. If you want more allowance too at the hip side, you can just open it with the 2 inches allowance at the. So if the hip is 44, you can shape yours 48 to get a more allowance around your hip. So thank you for watching this episode. Thank you for joining us on today's episode. I hope you learned something. If you have any question, drop it in the comment section below or contact the number on the screen. If you are interested in joining the Knaspa fashion training, call the number on the screen for more information. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you on the next episode. Thank you.